See, he was a bachelor in a neighborhood that, he was living the bachelor life. And I think there was this point in our lives. I look at this as, again, a gray situation where we met each other at just the right time.
Okay.
And I think it's important. I remember walking back from work with another gentleman that I worked with, and we got talking. It was right around the time I was getting married, and I had mentioned to him, and this guy is just, I described some of the qualities. He said, well, you should have been looking for those kind of guys all along.
But I think you have to get to that place.
Yes, you do.
Have to mature.
That's exactly
I think
right.
You produce after your own kind.
Absolutely.
And I think, you get that edge off and that
Yes.
maturity sets in. You go, okay, I am now an official parent.
And let's face it, there are times when you don't want to be a parent. When you
No.
don't want to feel like
No,
the
you don't want to be
matron.
responsible.
You do.
And it's okay
Oh my
to
God, I
feel
can't
that
tell
way.
you how
That's
many
human.
times.
Yes.
You just want to tear it off.
And you go, God, you have a sense of humor because
Oh
you
my
chose
God.
me.
I can't tell you how many times. And I've done that for other mothers where I
Sure.
knew, look, you just need to go out, cut out, and have a blast. But I'm telling you, to be able to know that this guy was going to come around, or if he needed me, and we laughed some of the first times he babysat him. He didn't know how to change a diaper. David was.
And this guy would babysit for
Oh,
you?
he occasionally.
Okay, so
Again,
then you married him. How soon after you met him? Okay, yeah, a guy that volunteers to babysit.
Well, let me
That's
tell you,
a-
if you want
ladies,
that, what he would do
volunteered
is
to babysit.
he basically fed him all sorts of junk food. When it was time to put him back, of course, you have the whole system on how you're going to do it. When I came home, he was laying on the couch, sweating profusely, and he said, I really earned my wings. He had taken my son, who had had a messy diaper, and turned on the bathroom faucet and basically swung his little rear end under the sink and hosed him off like he's in Kansas.
Okay,
I think he
yes.
was used to doing that with cattle.
Exactly.
It
So it's
didn't
like, yeah,
matter.
this works with
my
kids.
son is not any worse for the wear because
Sure.
and I think there's a thing where women we kind of overlook the good guys sometimes.
Yes, we do.
In that, especially after you figure, you know what, I
What you wanted
really
at 20.
toughed it out.
Yes,
Yeah.
what you wanted at 20, and then what
Yes,
you want in your
it's a
30s and
different
your
game.
40s, and then after children. Because in 20s you
Absolutely.
have this idea he needs to look a certain way. You
No.
allowed James to adopt your son.
Yes.
That's huge. That is huge because I'm certain that we have an audience out there, male or female, that's in a relationship and deciding to consummate that union, but you're going, boy, what do I
Right.
do? I want to marry this guy, but I'm not sure about legalizing this situation. Would you share a little about that?
Well, I in our situation, it was once I really knew that this was the guy.
was the
and
guy. I
this-
mean, he
yes,
hosed your son
yeah,
off with the
hosed
water,
the son
yes, and
off,
changed
he
the
mowed
diaper.
my parents' lawn. I knew what I had.
He's the man.
And here's the deal: we saw an attorney, and this attorney was wonderful because he and his wife. The wife was a colleague of ours, and once we married, we said that this is what we want to do. He was ready to do it, and we didn't see. My relationship with my son's biological father was difficult,
Okay.
and toward the end, it wasn't. But my husband wanted to adopt him, and it culturally, people do it differently. I wanted all our names to match.
Yes.
I mean, I believe I'm I'm an independent woman. Professionally, we were a family. I was yearning for that family. I didn't need to keep my own
what a
name.
blessing.
We
Yes.
were all coming together.
Good for you.
And
Good for you.
that was the decision that we made. When he adopted him, we talked to the attorney. The attorney said, he gave us so many good tips about, how to talk to the child, how to answer the questions about, because his real
And the
father
name
was
change,
going to be out of
yes.
there.
And
Yes.
the name changes
He was,
that
he was
differ.
young
Yeah,
enough that
yes.
he didn't know. Now, today he
Okay.
talks, and that was the other thing, knowing what to tell him as he grew up. You just tell them as much. These are conversations you have with your attorney, your faith leader, your, counselors at school, parenting consultants. Just when do you tell them as much, pediatrician, as they
Sure.
want to know. When he asked, who's my father?
That's when you know, okay,
Yes,
time for
it's
that
when you want it to
conversation.
be
Sure,
perfect. You
yes.
want it to be perfect. He asked me that. My son was 6 years old when he said, Mom, I was at your wedding. And I said, yes, you were.
Yes,
We
you
were
were.
back at home. Jim, my husband, was at, we were visiting Detroit, and we were driving around some sites, and his sister was just a tiny little thing in the car seat. Dave's 5 or 6. He says, Mom, I was at your wedding. I said, yeah, I knew this was going to be the talk.
Exactly.
I always
Yes.
hoped we would all be together when he said it. And
Oh,
he
what a
said,
blessing.
well, and I said, well, do you want to ask a question? He goes, well, who is my dad? And I said, well, who's your dad? And he said, well, Jim, Dad. I said, yes. And he said, quiet. And I thought, we got through that
Okay,
one.
whew.
We're driving down, and he
Next.
goes, but
Kids
who
are
did
good.
you have sex with to make me?
Oh my God.
And I'll tell you what. So
here we go.
This is now again
Now, this is
having
the real
consulted,
conversation.
having consulted again. People, not trying to take it all on myself.
Yes.
Somebody had told me,
You thought, Jane, I'm
just
glad you're
tell
here.
them as much as they can understand. So when he asked me who he was, I told him his name.
Yes.
And he said, "Oh, okay."
Okay. He's
That
fine.
was it. So
Yes.
I said, do you have any other questions? He said, no. And he said, do you understand who your dad is? He said, yeah, my dad is Jim, the father that he grew up with.
Sure.
Years later, other things would come out, and
he knew
it
you
was
had to-
always age appropriate that I
Yes.
put it. And I have family members who didn't find out about their, real dad and mom until they were later. And their parents did what they thought was the right thing to do. But I think it was harder to sort of say, explain the story.
Exactly.
But
I mean,
as long as
people
you're
that get
honest,
shy,
yes.
they go, sex, ooh, don't
Yes,
don't talk
yes,
about that word.
yes. And
yes.
clearly these kids,
Don't mention-
believe me, if we don't educate them, they're going to get it
Right.
elsewhere. So we have always been upfront about that. And I'd have to say it was smooth. It was just recently he met his father. His biological father had another child who at this point is now, she's in her 20s. And my son and his half-sister found themselves on Facebook.
Wow, and we have a minute. So tell us, wow, he just met his dad. But you know what? The blessing is those spaces, those voids were filled, and he
Yes.
knew that Jim was his dad.
Yes.
And I think we've really shared some very important facts and some information with our audience, because oftentimes you feel you're alone. How do you answer those questions? And kids now are so mature. So ladies, men, just be prepared, and I hope you will take the advice. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for having me.
Yes, thank you.
I
You were
appreciate it.
absolute blessing. I appreciate your honesty.
I appreciate
And so
what
many
you're
people
doing.
won't be honest. And I'll remember when we have another talk and we're deciding to talk about sex and education to children, that we call you back on the show.
Please think of me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for tuning in. I am La Petite Dece, the Single Parent Show, brought to you by Christ Our Shepherd Ministries. And again, remember, you are not alone. Be blessed.